Well, let's welcome David Carmichael. So
Yeah.
today is something very particular, very unique because we kind of invited you to speak about your learning experience with Flask.
Yeah,
So yes, thank you very much for accepting the invitation. And
thanks for having us.
can you please introduce yourself?
Yeah, sure. So my name's David, as you can see there. I usually do DevOps style software, sort of controlling servers and stuff like that using Python. But uh, I've sort of had a colourful past in the IT world, coming from sort of hardware to more software things like that. But right now, I'm doing integration systems between using a lot of API layers and with Flask at the back end, and it's been really good. Um, yeah, picking up Flask, coming from sort of a Python background, it's been it's been phenomenal.
Okay, and I think you said that you picked Flask because it's related to DevOps. Like you did not have to think of other frameworks, or you did have to make a choice.
Yeah, so I did look at Django um, a while back, but I like the sort of just the simplicity of Flask as a framework, and it doesn't have any. There's no baggage in it. You can just set it up um, and just adapt it to whatever you want. You don't have to worry about it being full of sort of stuff with Django. I think you get a whole framework as one. It's kind of heavy, you know. But Flask is very good for. It's lightning quick as well. Flask. It's very fast. Yeah, it just works so well because I think I use it with Alpine Linux, and it's lightning, really quick.
I was just about to say there, if my camera was on, you could have seen me nodding with every statement you were saying about why Flask over to Django.
Yeah,
Because I think
it's
the Django,
phenomenal.
I think the benchmark was like 3 or 4 seconds per page
Uh-huh.
load,
Yeah.
which just it blows you away when Flask can do it in half a second.
Oh, it's
Um,
incredible.
and I think
Yeah.
if you're trying to do that for infrastructure management, you know, each second counts.
Yeah, it's very essential. Yeah, the sort of speed of things.
So
Um,
yeah, can you walk us through a sort of a typical? So you said you use it for infrastructure management. What kind of things do you manage with your infrastructure using Flask and Flask-based projects?
so I usually just use it for back end things. So I use subprocess a lot in Python, but I use Flask to like for webhooks and things like that. API layers to talk between systems. Um, just recently, I'm trying to do web just website deployments, but like
Mm-hmm.
on a really quick scale for the company for like a back end framework for things. So right now, the project that I'm working on is a sort of versatile back end Flask framework that can be like adapted to anything that it needs to be. And that I'm trying to make that deployable, as in just a one-click button from a web page manager to deploy it.
I,
Uh,
I'm sort of I'm grimacing there because
yeah, yeah.
if you don't use Docker, I really hope you're using Docker.
I am
Um,
not. I am not.
oh,
Uh, yeah,
you're in for a hell of a lot of time then. That's going to take you a long time.
yeah. It's the I'm trying to make it not platform specific so that it
Hmm.
can be sort of moved around quite easily. And
Yeah.
uh, that was one of the talks about the project as well, is like try and not make it platform specific. I know that Docker's very good, especially with Alpine.
Yeah.
I've seen a lot of tutorials for Docker and Alpine to work together very well. Um, but you're locking yourself into one place. So I chose the most difficult route by using Proxmox
Oh, you
on
poor
Debian.
thing. You poor thing.
It's
I'm
working
so
out
sorry.
okay. Um,
I've worked with Proxmox. The API is
yeah,
just
it's bad.
yeah.
It's bad, but it's
It,
Debian, so it's
yeah,
kind of
fair.
it's easy. Yeah, it's
So
easy.
what would you say your typical deployment looks like with Flask then?
Just a standard one. So I've got like a sort of set up. So it's like a webhook type. So where it doesn't actually there's one domain that it queries
Mhm.
to tell it that it's live, and then that domain knows that it's live, and then it sends a deployment. And when we do the clone of the initial we've got like a template clone
Yeah.
on Proxmox, and we do that clone, then we boot it up. It tells the main management server that it's alive, and then we can do deploys. So all the Python essentially writes the Flask app
Interesting.
and the files, so that it's sort of the template does everything by itself to a certain extent, and then we
Hmm.
can so we can allocate like IP addresses to these machines, like internal IP addresses to change it all up. But subprocess has been my best friend in all of
I've worked
this.
with subprocess just a tad, and let
Yeah,
me tell you, it's an absolute nightmare.
yeah. I mean, it's okay when it wants to work,
When
but
it doesn't, it's hell.
yeah,
Um,
because it's trying to get the logs out of it that's one of the main issues. Is
don't get me started. Don't get me
yeah,
started.
it's
So obviously we're here to talk about your experience learning Flask. So
uh,
let's move back into there because I feel like we've got a bit off track.
yeah.
Um, what would you say is what motivated you to learn Flask initially? What drove you, and what was your path to learning Flask?
So we can go back to sort of the education. So I've got an education in software development, and I, I wanted to get into more web app things because I seen that's where it was going, which it has now. You know, everything's pretty much a web app these days.
Yep.
So I initially picked up Cold Fusion, if you could believe that.
I don't
uh,
even know what that is.
uh, Adobe bought it from
Yeah.
Macromedia. I think it's kind of similar to Vue almost, because Vue uses those custom tag things. Kind of, I don't know. Vue reminds me of it anyway. But I picked up that, and then it failed. And nobody really uses it, so I moved on to Python. And I'm like, okay, so now I've got Python under my belt. I need a Python framework, like a web framework. So I initially picked up Django,
No.
and then I realized that it was very, very slow. But I'd seen Flask, and it just seems that Django is everywhere, but Flask is so much better.
Mhm.
So I bought a book from Packet Publishing called Mastering Flask Web Development, and
Mhm.
it was really confusing because I think it was this book's aimed at sort of beginner intermediate, so I
Oh,
didn't really learn much.
let me say that I don't know if some pack editors are around, but I don't know why the quality sometimes is not as you would expect. They
Yeah,
have it's not books, but they have online some. Now they do it some course form or something like that. It's
yeah,
much better than the book form. Because the book form is kind of got some issues that scare away people, not from the subject, but from the
it's the
format
flow.
itself.
Yeah, it's the flow of the information that it gives you in the books. It's just this was one of the I kind of like having a paper book. It's not really the best thing, but I can put sticky notes in it and things, you know.
Yeah.
But I realized that the flow of the book, the information in the book, the flow isn't so great. So what I did was I went onto the Packet website and actually bought the subscription to that,
Mhm.
and I went through the online material. So you're absolutely right. The web material on Packet's much better. Um, but
That's probably because it's through a subscription model, so they
yeah,
can just continually develop it rather than a single purchase.
yeah, absolutely, yeah. So, but even the courses on Packet, the flow of information to go through them, going to the different pages and stuff like that, it's much better than the books. So, if any advice I could give would be, I mean, if you like a book, you could buy the book, but I, some people don't really like looking at computer screens for text and things which I can understand. But the books are quite hard. I've not actually found a good Flask book um, that's been pretty good. All the Flask stuff's really online.
And I think that fits the framework style, to be fair.
Yeah,
It's a web framework, so you wouldn't really expect it.
It's not a book framework, yeah.
No, I think that's the challenging thing with Flask teaching materials and learning materials. You can't really put them in a book because the format doesn't work.
It's big, yeah.
You need to be able to easily access the demonstrations and examples. Having an image of an example is not going to work because you need to be able to play with it and understand, this piece of code, if I change this, what does this do? You need to be able to pick it apart. And I think that's one of the key things about learning a new framework is getting some boilerplate or sample code, tearing it to shreds and going, so this line, if I put it here, does this, but if I put it here, it does something completely different. Whoa.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that goes on to the next point. So I picked up Python from Codemy or Code Academy.
Oh, I know of them, yeah.
Yeah, so that gave me a wee refresher on quite a lot of the sort of stuff that you need to remember in Python, like lists and things that you always forget for some reason. I don't know why.
Yeah.
But I just recently seen there that the Code Academy's got Flask.
Have they got
there.
that? That's new.
It's just new. So I would highly encourage people, if they want to learn Flask, to go to Code Academy. I can understand it might be a bit expensive, especially if you're doing it individually, monthly. But I think if you're through an education body, I think you can get it a bit cheaper.
Mm-hmm.
If you're a student,
you get the student discounts. You've got the sort of bulk order contracts between Codecademy and the education providers. It's all sorts of messes that I'm not going to get into because that's just a whole nother discussion on economies of scale, but that's business and not Flask.
I know. There's the price you pay just to learn.
I know.
In a comfortable space, I suppose.
Yeah.
But it's pretty good. But the cheat sheets are also a really good thing.
Oh yeah.
That I've found that have just been. You tend to forget the stringify time thing. Oh my god, just that's not going in my brain. So
even I don't get date time and how to format times as print statements. I know if I've got the table of
you can reference it,
placeholders, it's fine. But if I'm trying to do it without the table, it's not going to happen.
Yeah. The cheat sheets are a big thing. I've actually put together a wee PDF document with the majority of things that I've used. I don't know if you want the short link to that.
Sure, we can put that in the session stuff. That would be
stick it in the private chat. I'll stick it in there. Just like
sure. I'll have a look. Is that okay to share with people attending the conference? Just in case it's got anything.
No, there's no private info.
Okay.
So,
just checking.
A bunch of links to the stuff that I've used.
Okay, you should be able to put that in Flask session chat then. Saves me reposting it.
Where's that in the Discord?
Yes.
And probably in the description of the YouTube video.
Yes, we'll put that there as well when this talk comes up.
Yeah, it's just a handy sort of reference. I've probably missed a couple of things out on that, but
who hasn't when they're preparing a document?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, but the cheat sheets have been great. I think if anyone's learning it, and also the code storage stuff, like everyone uses GitHub, like we get that, But
you say everyone. I run my own self-hosted Git, but anyway, moving on.
Majority of people that are going into learning code always end up on the GitHub. Yeah,
that's fair. I'll give you that one.
But there's a few other.
David, if I could just suggest, I'm sorry, if you could put it on a Notion link and share that, so that way when you're updating it, the latest version is always what will be available to everyone, right? Because this feels like a thing in evolution. So
all right, okay.
I'll ping you on the Discord channel if you're there.
You can talk me through that. Yeah,
sure thing.
I can do that. Yeah, if it's a bit better. Yeah. What was I saying? The GitHub's pretty good, but there's other ones on there. What's been really great for me is the 3 calls. I used brackets before just to save like code snippets, just reminders of what to do. But the 3 calls one's like an online platform where you can access it from sort of anywhere or any device, just using it's got the WAF thing, where you can sign in with your Google and things. But that's been amazing. So whenever I go to, a new computer, if I move a computer, I can just fire up the 3 calls just to remind myself of sort of small blocks of code.
Yeah,
it seems that the more I go on to the, diving deeper into Flask, that the simple stuff I start to forget, which is only
it's so
natural,
easy to forget things.
Yeah.
When you start learning something more advanced, you tend to forget the bit that's the build up to it, and then it's like, this works, but why? What's underneath? What powers this?
Yeah. There's a lot of that that's missed out, I think, in sort of teaching stuff, especially in Code Academy. It doesn't really
teaches you the high level.
Yeah, it doesn't teach you where stuff's actually going, or I suppose that's normal for all sort of coding languages out there at the moment.
I guess that depends on where you learn from as well.
Yeah, definitely, yeah.
I think I funnily enough, Flask is actually in the UK education system.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
I didn't know that.
I'm actually doing my A-level computer science project at the moment in Flask.
What? Oh, nice. I didn't know that. That's good.
So my teacher actually, when we were learning web development, they've actually put Flask and all of the base extensions on all of the school computers.
That's fantastic. So they're actually
that's at another level.
Yeah, we can access them from any device anywhere in the school.
That's pretty good. I'm actually surprised at that.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
Well, when the IT teachers have got the same level of access as IT support, it sort of explains it.
Yeah, true. Yeah.
But yeah,
that's pretty good.
I think learning it as soon as you can really helps, because then you're still ready to learn, as it were. You're still learning those skills, and if you can build on knowledge that you're learning, it becomes really critical as well.
Yeah. Even understanding the sort of, you kind of do need to understand the Python background to it as well. Like, decorators not so much, but definitely like object oriented, just computer science stuff, like object orientation, things like that. Because a lot of beginners come from backgrounds of like, I want to build a website,
and then they build the HTML, and it's just like, now I want to make this work. How?
Yeah, I need to render this template with like, things like that. But just even getting a sense of just like maybe object orientation. But yeah, these online courses like Code Academy can teach you things like, especially classes and inheritance and functions, and these sort of things are, I'd say, is where to maybe start. You don't need it. You don't really need it. But if you do build your Flask app, what I would say is probably try and understand those concepts as you're going along with it. And you eventually build this massive Flask app that's like really inefficient, and then you're kind of like, oh no, I could just change that to like a bunch of classes instead of and you start going from there.
At what point would you say this is too big, we need to put this into classes? At what point would you say that you need to change it up into object oriented?
Yeah, I think it's when you're using, I don't know. See, I use classes to be lazy. Really, I use them for laziness. So, like, one of the logging system, like to log log requests and what's going on in certain requests. Like, for instance, if someone makes a user on the system, you could probably just put that into a function. But I just created a class for it. So I just put update log.this, and then through like a dictionary.
It works. It works.
It's very lazy. You just call the object and the the initialization, then you can just dot this on the object, import from app.
Whatever works. If it works, it works, and I think that's the key thing.
I think it's been very Pythonic, isn't it? Trying to make it look beautiful. Going from that way.
I am guilty of writing a logging class using Colorama when logging.logger exists.
It's fun,
I am very guilty.
It's
definitely a fun experience, to try and write your own logging utility.
Yeah.
when there's one already, it sort of loses a bit of its charm. But to be fair, the learning curve for logging is a bit of a pain.
We have all been there with logging.
Yeah. it needs
still
to do
there.
one more thing than the built-in one. So you just build, you just build one yourself. I mean, it's not that hard, I suppose.
And how do you find the online resources for Flask? Are they like easy to find, or are they outdated, or how is the ease of you want to do something and you go and look up for the resource you find and implement, and it's okay? How difficult or how easy is that thing?
So the online documentation for Flask is very, very good. It's got the explanation at the start and then the code example at the bottom. And so I've used the Flask documentation quite a lot when picking Flask up. It's been really good for Jinja as well, because Jinja's quite new to me, the concept of that. But Jinja's just, Python with different sort of syntax, which is quite nice.
Just like mass Python F strings.
Yes, yeah. The fact that it uses sort of the dot items and things for dictionaries, it's quite nice, because it's it's the same. It's not complex. It's not complex in it. But the Flask documentation's got all that on there, and which is very, very good. But the documentation on there it is quite good, but it doesn't really.
What about the community articles? Articles contributed by the community when you do a Google search. So like about one is the official docs, but when you fare on your own, how easily do you find articles and other articles relevant, up to date, or how exactly do you find the experience?
So all the there's a lot of resources for Flask, things like that. I've not actually really came across a community article. Is that just posts up, or?
I think it's posts, anything written by the community. Anything on Flask that's teaching you something that's not by Palettes or by the Palettes community group.
Right, I don't think I've ever actually came across something that I've not found on Palettes documentation for. I think if I'm Googling something specific, it always shows up in those SourceForge or something.
SourceForge is always a fixture when you search for certain software packages. I'd say that.
So I don't think I've ever actually seen any of the community articles,
which is good in a sense, because it means that the documentation covers what you need. So you don't. If the documentation's that good, it means that you don't really need to go searching anywhere else, because the documentation is helping you understand it, which is good. I like clear documentation.
It's a very good resource. Although saying that, I think if the documentation I can understand, because I've got sort of a deeper understanding of where it's coming from, or I can know where that's going to go. So the small snippet at the bottom of the explanation, I can sort of read anyway and get an idea of where it's coming from. So I don't really need a handheld sort of guide through it. So I'd imagine if I didn't know so much about how Python works at the back end, I would probably need sort of hand-holding. Although I did read an article about the Unicorn and Nginx setup a while ago, which was pretty good. So the way that I've got it working is an Nginx proxy.
Lovely.
That just goes out to like sort of internal IP addresses of Flask apps that are containerized.
Nginx just saves my life.
Yes.
Otherwise it's a nightmare. I've even got a local Nginx on my machine on Docker. It's that.
Oh
good.
yeah, nice. Yeah.
I've also got an acrylic proxy for DNS, so I can just trap any domain names that I want to work with and just forward them back to myself. And then I can. I've got a self-signed root certificate that expires in 100 years for all domain names on my machine. So
that's fantastic. Yeah, you can just create internal web addresses. It's fantastic. Yeah, it's good for.
I think we're coming to the end of the time that we've got. Don't doesn't it just go? It just goes so quick.
I know, yeah.
Yes, definitely. And yes, go
I
on.
have a question for all of you in general. We're talking about Nginx and the wiring for Flask applications. So if you are going to teach it to someone who's just learning it for the first time, where they're struggling with, hosting their application and stuff. So what would you suggest as a primer to start with? Because the last time I learned Nginx, I've actually forgotten how I learned it now. So I don't know if any of you have a better way to pick it up and like introduce it to someone who's learning it.
I deploy Nginx a lot, and I
Okay.
think the main thing from me is write standardized templates. If I've got 2 templates at the moment, one for a PHP FPM that's running on a Unix socket, and one for a reverse proxy application. Those are the 2 templates that you really need, in my opinion.
Yeah, I sort of keep it standard as well. But there are guides out there. That's not included in the PDF. I should probably included that. But there are guides out there to get started on that. Again, I've got, coming from a DevOps background, all my deployments in Nginx are all automatic. I just type in what web address I need to use, and it does all the does all the back end scripts and sets it all up, changes the config file, and then reboots it and things for me. So I hardly ever touch the config file anymore.
You just have it automated.
Yeah, I just have it automated.
I'm actually curious.
Yeah.
I'm curious. What orchestration platform do you use?
It's just the Proxmox.
Fair enough.
Now. Yeah, we've touched on a wee bit of Linode and things like that.
What's the name of the platform?
For the hypervisor?
No, which you just said. I didn't catch it.
Proxmox.
Okay, can you just like drop it in the session chat of the?
Yeah, sure.
Thank you.
Just to briefly summarize what Proxmox is an absolutely, it's brilliant but horrible.
It's free.
It's free software.
It's free software.
Can't really complain.
No.
API useless.
You can't.
Sorry,
you can't,
had a bit of a cough there.
You can't complain about free software. Yeah.
Well, you'd be surprised at the amount of people that think free software is, I'm going to offload all my bugs onto the underlying library software reports. You would not believe the amount of complaints OpenSSL gets.
Oh yeah, I can imagine. Jeez, oh. There's definitely guides out there for setting up sort of unicorn stuff. So, especially HTTPS is quite hard to understand. But if you just use Certbot,
that makes
Certbot,
everything neat.
Yeah, it just handles it for you. Don't worry about it. Get your initial config and then just use Certbot, and then you'll be absolutely fine.
Did you know that you can actually use a wildcard with Certbot, by the way?
Oh yeah, no, yeah, you can add a wildcard, yeah.
But yeah, I think we're actually nearly bang on time. It has been great to have you on the FlaskCon today, and thank you very much for taking time to join us.
Awesome.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for having us. It's lovely meeting you all. Yeah.
We have to have you back next year, and we can talk more about this, because it's an interesting use case for Flask. I will say that. I think this is the first one I've heard where it's actually being used in an orchestration management platform. So
yeah, it's good. Well, everything's moving to web apps, so I thought I'll just use Flask to press the buttons on that.
Tell you what, don't give me an excuse to invite you back for an hour and a half long presentation or workshop on it.
Yeah, I could maybe go through the system that I'm working on, but I'll be very embarrassed.
Oh, come on. We'll have to set that up for next year.
We're all very lazy.
Well, then it would be a good excuse for you and whoever's presenting. Hopefully it'd be me. Bit selfish of me there. Good excuse for the pair of us to sort of go through a bit and sort of go, well, what could we do to make this better, and pick it apart with people who are joining us?
Oh, that'd be fantastic. Yeah, that'd be.
I think that would be an insane ability to be able to have. But I am aware that we are running to time.
Yeah,
so
I better let you go. Yeah.
Thank you very much. I will speak to you soon. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you. All right, take care. Bye bye.
Thanks, you too. Bye.